You might want to sit down. The story of what's happening now in Syria reads like a tragedy that never seems to end, but also a drama evolving fast. And by watching through to the end, you'll get a clearer sense of how Syria got here and where it might go next. Imagine walking through a city where the air smells of dust and fear, where every broken window and empty street whispers a name of a neighbor lost, and then realizing this isn't distant history. This is now. This is Syria 2025. You'll learn how a long-running war evolved into a humanitarian disaster, what triggered the most recent wave of violence and suffering, who's fighting whom now, and what ordinary Syrians are enduring today. After years of war, the regime of Bashar al-Assad finally collapsed, a moment many hoped would mark the end of Syria's suffering. The new transitional government, led by Ahmed al-Shara from January 2025, promised reconstruction and a fresh start. Yet beneath the surface, the pressures of war, destroyed infrastructure, shattered trust, displaced populations, economic collapse, remained. More than 16.5 million Syrians needed humanitarian aid in 2025, even in areas that seem quiet now. Danger lurked: landmines, unexploded ordnance, broken hospitals, crippled water and electricity systems. So the peace, if one could call it that, was fragile. As if the scars of war weren't enough, Syria was struck by a devastating drought in 2025, the worst in decades. Rainfall dropped to just a fraction of normal, water sources dried up, agriculture collapsed, wheat production fell by roughly 40%, causing a massive shortfall in staple food supply, a shortage large enough to feed millions for a year. The result: Syria entered what many are calling the worst hunger crisis in its modern history. As many as 14 to 15 million people now face severe food insecurity. Children, IDPs, internally displaced people, and rural communities are suffering most. Families that already lost homes in the war now scramble to find bread and water, many living on the brink. The collapse of the old regime did not bring universal peace. Instead, new conflicts flared, sometimes along ethnic and sectarian lines, sometimes ideological, sometimes with outside interference. In March 2025, coastal and western areas saw deadly attacks allegedly by pro-Assad insurgents targeting government buildings, hospitals, and checkpoints, a wave of violence that killed hundreds. In southern Syria, particularly in the Suwaida governorate, clashes erupted between local Druze communities and government-backed tribal militias. The violence triggered a humanitarian disaster: mass displacement, shortages of food and fuel, civilian casualties. In the northeast and other contested zones, sporadic fighting continues, and the risk posed by landmines and unexploded ordnance remains high, limiting safe return and reconstruction. So while the old front lines blurred, the fractures multiplied. Civilians squeezed between drought, hunger, displacement, and renewed violence. The combined effect of war, hunger, displacement, and instability has left millions in limbo. Hospitals and clinics have failed or are barely functioning. Water, sanitation, electricity, basic services most people take for granted, remain unreliable or cut off in many regions. Internally displaced families, once scattered across Syria or in neighboring countries, now face the agonizing choice of returning to unsafe homes or staying in overcrowded and resource camps. Some have returned, but mostly to areas still threatened by violence or lacking clean water. Schools or work, children, especially, are vulnerable. Many risk malnutrition, disease, lost education. The trauma inflicted by years of war doesn't vanish with a regime change. It lingers, passed from one generation to the next. Here's the moment you need to imagine: summer 2025. The drought tightens its grip, food becomes scarce, tension rises. You see families queuing for bread, for water, for medicine, parents afraid, children hungry, elders desperate. Then violence erupts again. Suwaida, coastal cities, northeast, flashes of gunfire, droning bombs, displaced families rushing through dusty streets. Hospitals, already broken, shuttered. Aid convoys delayed or blocked entirely by insecurity. In that moment, hope and despair merge. The war isn't over, and the suffering isn't limited to the past. It's happening now, and it's not only about bombs and bullets. It's about bread, water, and survival. That, the collapse of normal life. The sudden regression of everything Syria had momentarily tried to rebuild. That is the shocking reality. As we end, I leave you with this. In a country where the weapons have supposedly quieted, but hunger, displacement, and cruelty persist, can Syria truly rebuild? Can a transitional government, under immense internal pressure and external interference, heal the wounds of war? Physical, social, psychological, economic? How will Syrians rebuild shattered communities when the land itself, the farms, the water systems, the infrastructure, is damaged, the climate turned against them, and old divisions still simmering beneath the surface? And most importantly, how do the world, humanitarian agencies, and ordinary people decide whether to offer help or turn away?